Bună seara, încă o dată la Ambasador România. În această seară specială discutăm despre Orientul Mijlociu și îl avem invitat ca ambasador pe reprezentantul unei țări care în acest moment joacă un rol esențial în tot ce înseamnă criza din Orientul Mijlociu. Este vorba despre Turcia, o țară cu care România are partener strategic, o țară care în acest moment se opune tendințelor Rusiei de a ocupa Orientul Mijlociu, o țară care a avut curajul să trimită trupe terestre în Siria, singura variantă, din punctul meu de vedere, de rezolvare a conflictului, o țară care a avut și de suferit. Au avut loc atentate pe bandă rulantă în Turcia în ultima perioadă. În ultimul atentat au murit 28 de oameni și a avut loc în această lună. Probabil că vor mai fi. O țară însă și cu probleme de altă natură, accederea la Uniunea Europeană, modul în care Turcia relaționează cu celelalte mari puteri, însăși Turcia crescând foarte mult și devenind o mare putere. Înainte de a intra într-o discuție cu ambasadorul Turciei la București, aș vrea să fac un scurt comentariu, așa cum fac la fiecare emisiune. Spuneam în ultimele ediții că am început o serie de investigații, că suntem alături de cetățenii români și că nu vom mai tolera nicio secundă nici disprețul autorităților, nici furtul, nici minciuna, nici populismul. Nu o vom face însă cu fanfare sau cu fanfară. Nu o vom face cu zurgălăi. O facem în liniște. Este vorba despre o coaliție care reunește în acest moment un număr uriaș de oameni, dar care nu dorim nici imagine, nu dorim nici recunoaștere, dorim doar să rezolvăm anumite probleme ale României. Vreau doar să știți un lucru. În calitate de președinte al acestei coaliții, suntem și vom fi alături de dumneavoastră. Dați-ne orice informații care credeți că sunt importante, cu dovezi, cu indicii, să aducem normalitatea și modernizarea în România. Și un ultim comentariu pe acest subiect, înainte de a intra în această emisiune cu ambasadorul Turciei, am intrat și eu într-o lume nouă, în lumea Facebook-ului, și pe lângă pagina oficială mi-am deschis un cont personal, pentru că am vrut să interacționez la rândul meu, nu doar să postez, nu doar să fiu citit, să interacționez cu oamenii și să știu ce se întâmplă în România, ce părere au despre modul în care merge România. Dar ce să vezi? După 2 zile de funcționarea paginii și aproape 1600 de persoane care s-au alăturat, de prieteni, a fost blocată. De ce? Nu știu. O foloseam. În timp ce o foloseam, s-a blocat. Pentru că cineva, nu știm cine, a avut grijă să explice celor de la Facebook că nu sunt eu. E bine, eram eu pe acea pagină, am transmis toate datele către Facebook și aștept răspunsul. Pot să-i asigur de un singur lucru pe prietenii de pe Facebook. Că voi reveni, indiferent că se deschide pagina sau că voi deschide o altă pagină. Nu pot închide aceste persoane câte pagini pot deschide eu oricând. Ceea ce mă bucură este că au fost foarte mulți oameni care au dorit să ia legătura, să intre în legătură, să intre în contact cu mine. Este un lucru pe care îl prețuiesc, la care țin și pe care îl voi prețui în continuare. Ultimul amănunt pe care îl mai dau, pentru că vreau totuși să verific informațiile, este următorul. Poate este o simplă coincidență și un cetățean de bună credință s-a gândit că oare eu, care n-am existat pe Facebook până acum, mi-am deschis cont personal, a vrut să fac un bine. A vrut să-mi facă mie un bine și să alerteze Facebook că eu nu exist și că cineva îmi folosește ilegal imaginea, pozele personale și așa mai departe. Îi mulțumesc. Dar ultimul detaliu pe care vreau să-l dau este că a survenit totuși această intenție de bună credință. După ce am primit informații extrem de interesante despre mafia din România, mafia politico-economico-financiară, detalii despre firme, acționariat, politicieni din județe, din fiecare județ. Și sigur, acele informații urmau să fie verificate. Eu nu spun că asta e motivul. Poate e doar o coincidență. Cert este un lucru, că indiferent cum vor evolua lucrurile, voi reveni în spațiul online și vă rog și vă încurajez să ne dați în continuare cele informații. Cele de până acum sunt unele tulburătoare. Este incredibil, incredibil ce legături și câți bani și modul în care se fură în România, indiferent că vorbim de Constanța sau Olt. Ca să dau doar două exemple interesante despre care am primit informații cât se poate de complete. Bun, acesta a fost un intro puțin mai lung pentru că și evenimentele, din păcate, au determinat-o. Mă întorc la emisiunea noastră, o emisiune care este dedicată înțelegerii fenomenelor internaționale pentru că ele afectează România și nu vreau să mai lungesc introducerea. Îl am alături de mine pentru a doua oară pe un ambasador la care țin foarte mult, un ambasador tânăr, dinamic și un ambasador care aduce un spirit de modernitate și de modernism. Nu doar Turciei, ci idei de diplomat în general. Este vorba despre ambasadorul Turciei, Mr. Ambassador Koray. I appreciate you very much. That is a known thing. And I said some bad words about you, but you will not take that.
Since my Romanian knowledge is still so poor, so I hope you made a good introduction. Yeah.
With few bad words, but it is okay.
Okay, so I agree.
I appreciate you very much, and I know your country is passing difficult moments, and I would like for me to speak as less as possible. It was an intro which was not connected to you or your country, but now I would like to speak very much about your country because it's passing very difficult moments with several bomb attacks from groups that we know already who they are. It's PKK. Let's say the armed group of the Kurds, which are in the south of Turkey. You have now also dealing with Syria, and you are the country which is holding, or is the host, if I can say so. You are the host of almost 1 million or 2 million, 1.5?
About 3.
3 million now?
Yes, 2.6.
From the last talk show, the number is
it continues to increase, yeah.
Of migrants.
Yeah.
The first question to you is the following: after Russia made appeal to the UN Security Council, the President of France declared that Russia and Turkey are close to a war. How far is he from the reality, and what is actually the truth?
Thank you, Alex. Actually, I should underline that PKK is a very well-known, notorious terrorist group, which is accepted as such by the US, by the EU, and by Romania itself. And it's waging a bloody, dirty war for many decades now against Turkey, against civilians. On President Hollande's statements, yes, the tensions are pretty high. Actually, Russia wanted to table a resolution at the UN Security Council, which will somehow covertly criticize Turkey for its intentions, but it didn't go through, of course, because this was a clear attempt to divert the attention of the international community from its own mistakes and faults that currently that they are doing in Syria. Many nations in the Security Council say there's no way that we support such a resolution. Of course, there are people preaching about possibilities of a third world war, a new cold war, and etc. As diplomats, we have to be always careful and optimistic. I know that both Russia and Turkey are old countries, old states having a huge experience of a statehood for such projects or expectations.
But Russia already mentioned that if you will send troops on the field in Syria, they will consider this as an act of war. What is your perspective? I mean, what will be your decision? Will you actually be sending troops?
We said a couple of times that we are not trying to send Turkish troops to Syria without any international backing or scheme. We just say from the very beginning that, as you know, there's an international coalition of more than 60 states against Daesh, ISIS, which Romania is also part of it. Yeah. And we say from the very beginning that only with airstrikes we cannot defeat Daesh.
I agree.
We need to use ground troops.
Yeah.
And in that regard, Turkey is ready if our allies and partners in the international coalition also are ready to use ground force in the region. But of course, unilaterally, without any international justification, we will not do such a thing, and we made it clear. But on the other hand, there's a serious threat to Turkish domestic security. Very few countries are actually that much directly affected by the crisis in Syria. There is a huge terrorism threat, and it's easy to talk from outside, from the windows of nice offices, of saying, well, do not do this or do not do that. But if this terrorism threat from Syria, in the name of YPG, continues to attack our national security, all options are on the table, and our leaders made it clear, of course. But we are not a country of people who doesn't know what to do. We are an old state, and we know we have huge reflexes how to act and react at serious moments.
And you also have a fantastic army. You're modernized your army. Now it's the second most powerful army in NATO.
Yeah, unfortunately, given our geographic location, if you look on the map, it has always been a difficult geography. During the Cold War, before that, after that. So we needed a strong army at all times because of possible threats either from inside or outside. Now our army is second largest in NATO, and we need to, unfortunately I will say, because I wish we live in a more peaceful environment and we spend less to military spending, but we need to do this here in this such difficult geography. And we know what we need to do. And also I need to underline that our nation is so resilient. I mean, these challenges are so huge, I agree. But if you look to our history, it was not also easy. There were very difficult times. Even the big Cuban Missile Crisis, for example, was directly involved the Turkish case as well. So it's a resilient nation, it's an experienced state, a strong army. I think we will surpass
Mr. Ambassador,
and leave this behind us.
Why is Russia afraid of you? Not only you, as you mentioned already, your army will enter on Syrian territory on the field only with the approval of this coalition. But let me ask you, why is Russia opposing that? They consider that you are supporting the opposition to Bashar al-Assad. What is the reason for which they oppose? Because in principle, everybody is fighting terrorism. In principle, everybody wants peace in Syria, in Iraq.
That's right.
And a normal citizen is asking himself, okay, if Russia wants peace, if Turkey wants peace, if United States wants peace there, or at least to have a normal environment, why would Russia oppose for you to enter with troops to end with Daesh, which is the terrorist organization recognized even by Russia to be the enemy? I mean, what are the games?
Sure. On paper, you are right. Everybody is against Daesh. This is on paper, unfortunately. And everyone has secondary agendas. Their not first target is Daesh at all. When you look to the airstrikes of Russia, it's under the eyes of international community. Everyone knows it. Almost 10% of the airstrikes are against Daesh targets. And the rest the huge amount of targets are against moderate opposition
Are you
or
referring
even
now to,
with civilians.
sorry, to
The Russian bombardments.
To the Russian bombardment? Okay.
Russian bombardments in Syria.
Mhm.
So hundreds of bombardments are targeted up until now, civilian population and also moderate opposition fighting against the regime of Assad. So there is no such thing as Russia fighting against Daesh. The same goes to other actors in the region, and to be politically correct, I would not go into name the countries. But if we are sincere of defeating Daesh, we have to defeat them on the ground first, and more importantly, we have to defeat their ideology. And defeating their ideology, you need countries like us, as a Muslim majority, Sunni majority country, who will actually undermine the whole philosophy of killing innocent civilians on the name of Islam. So you need a strong voices from the Muslim world, from the Muslim community, to speak out against this horrendous terrorist organization. What Russia is actually doing in Syria, it totally deteriorated the whole picture. Just recently, the UN accused them of bombing hospitals, schools. Amnesty just made a clear statement of accusing both the regime and the Russian forces of committing war crimes because they are directly targeting the civilians. And we cannot go at least an inch in terms of declaring a ceasefire, for example, because they are continuing bombing. We agree on the table. It happened in Munich. It happened in Geneva. We agreed on the table. We give nice photos, of course, with international community over there. The other day, they continue to bomb. So how can we agree on a ceasefire and move forward? It continues and it goes on. And in the meantime, they are telling us, well, you Turks just stay idle, even if the terrorist elements in Syria targets you, just stay idle, don't say anything to them.
And Russia is continuing to bomb the moderate opposition.
Yes,
is what you're saying.
Yes, of course. It's obvious. They're not denying it. They say there are terrorists as well, to convince the international community, showing pictures, you know, the whole propaganda thing.
Now, let's explain to the people, because maybe they are not aware of this. Who is the moderate opposition in Syria, and why do you consider them better than Bashar al-Assad?
It's a mess now in Syria. There are certain organizations who are declared as terrorist organizations by the UN, like Al-Qaeda, like ISIS-Daesh, like Al-Nusra Front. The rest of the groups are fighting for their rights against a bloody regime. Remember, in 2011, it was Turkey and Turkish leaders who make shuttle diplomacy back and forth to Damascus to try to convince then President Assad to heed the calls of its own people, because it was during the Arab Spring and people were asking more rights. But he refused. He continued to bomb his own citizens, civilians, with barrel bombs, with even using to the level of chemical weapons.
He killed many of his citizens, yes.
People took up of arms against this group. They are now in Aleppo, for example, living together with almost millions of civilians, protecting them against the regime attacks. So what are we saying together with international community, with the US, with France? We have to help these people who are actually the real owners of Syria. And if there will be a ceasefire, let them decide together to the future of the country, with all elements in the country.
I understand. So practically here we have a conflict of interests and principles. Russia wants to have Bashar al-Assad as such, and
obviously,
even to strengthen his power. Maybe after the short break of commercials, you'll explain us why would Russia support Bashar al-Assad, because not all the citizens are aware of the interests Russia has there. And second, we have the international community, including Turkey and Romania, as the international community, which agrees to support more or less all the countries, this moderate opposition.
Sure.
Okay, then we will take a short break of commercial, Mr. Ambassador, and be back with your answer, because this is an important question. Why is Russia supporting the Bashar al-Assad regime? Ambasadorul Turciei la București, iar întrebarea pe care am adresat-o înaintea pauzei de publicitate era: de ce sprijină Rusia regimului Bashar al-Assad din Siria? Mr. Ambassador?
Of course, I don't want to read what do they have in their mind. But remember, in 2008, it was Georgia.
Yes, I do remember, unfortunately.
And we all sat back. We couldn't do anything to our dear friend there.
Sure.
And in 2014, it was Ukraine. And remember, now, today, nobody talks about Crimea. Crimea has gone, it's in the pocket. We say, of course, on paper, saying that we will never recognize, and this is Turkey's official position, and I know that this is the official position of Romania as well, we will never recognize the annexation illegally of Crimea by Russia.
But silently, we all accepted.
Yes. Through Syria, intervention in Syria, now nobody talks about neither Crimea, nor Georgia, nor Donbas. It's forbidden. It's forgotten.
Sure.
This is one reason to divert the attention of international community from what has happened in its periphery.
This would be one reason.
This is one reason. The second reason, it has always been an ideal of reaching to warm waters territorially to the Mediterranean. Because, as you know, Black Sea is a small sea, and if Assad leaves the country,
where Turkey is the most powerful,
together with Romania and our partners,
together Romanian partners,
and if Assad leaves, there will be no place in Syria for Russia. They just want. Already they have air bases. They have a huge naval base. They already put their ships, military planes. So strategically, probably they are thinking that they should not lose such a huge opportunity. And thirdly, they are showing their muscles to the international community. Hey, I'm here, so you should show respect to me. I mean, firing, for example, missiles from Caspian to Daesh targets or whatever targets. This terrorist doesn't know whether this missile is coming from Caspian or from a plane. It's a show to the international community to show that I have this artillery, and beware of me. Of course, Russia is a great power, and international community should show due respect based on the rules of the international law. This is for sure, and actually we have shown this about 2 decades before this plane incident in our relationship with Russia. We increased them a lot. It was a relationship of equals to the better of our two of our nations. But when you started to dictate your own position to the other actors, then the game changes. So this is my humble reading.
Well, it is not humble at all, actually. You are very much aware of the situation there. You mentioned 3 reasons. One, to divert the public opinion and the international community from the 2 wars that Russia started and the occupied territories, Georgia and Ukraine. The second, the bases that are needed to be open to the sea through the bases they have in Syria now. And the third one, to show that they are still a big power. Now, Mr. Ambassador, I understand this, but we are speaking now about millions of people which are have destroyed their life. Mm-hmm. Iraq, Syria, north of Africa. And when everybody is asking himself, how could this organization, Daesh, Al-Qaeda, Muslim Brothers, how do they exist? Why are still alive? Because, okay, maybe the aircrafts, and I agree with you, were not very efficient in Syria at least. But in the same time, those groups have weapons, have money to buy the weapons and so on. And they're still powerful, even now. How is that possible?
This is the right question actually to ask. There is a dirty group, you say, everyone is against it, but you cannot win it over. So you have to ask, what is the root causes? There is an issue of this huge Sunni resentment, both in Iraq and in Syria. So these people, these terrorist groups, are finding ground, and their stories is coming meaningful to these alienated Sunni masses in these 2 countries.
Because of Saddam and all the other... Exactly.
It was an irregular picture in both countries, as you remember.
Yes.
In Saddam, a Sunni minority was governing a huge Shia majority, with, of course, anti-democratic techniques, alienating people and torturing them, etc. At the same time, in Syria, a small Alevi or small Nusayri minority was doing the same to a large Sunni mass, Sunni majority.
So they were leading, a minority was leading majority.
Exactly. So when things came upside down, revanchism started. In Iraq, if there are still problems, if we still cannot talk about a unified, stable Iraq, it's because of this. There's still revanchism based, unfortunately, on sectarian basis. And the biggest danger for the Middle East is sectarianism. If there's a sectarian divide, it will be a huge calamity for all of us in the region. So we have to go to the root causes. If there's a Sunni resentment, we have to try to solve it. How we can solve it? In Syria, for example, there should be a legitimate government. That's what we are saying from the very beginning. There was no Daesh in Syria before. Daesh is a new thing. It was Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, and people discuss why Al-Qaeda, appeared.
Yes.
Even maybe you remember the former British Prime Minister Tony Blair said our involvement in Iraq is actually partly responsible for Daesh. It was a historic confession, actually. So there should be a legitimate government. This is what our Russian friends do not understand. If we insist on going with the same person who is actually responsible for the creation of all these conditions that breeds terrorism as well, we cannot go forward.
Mr. Ambassador, do you know, I don't want figures, as above, I would like you to give a general percentage. Do you know how many Sunni are in Syria and how many are other type of groups?
I have no specific figure, but it's predominantly majority.
It's a large majority.
Large majority in Syria, yes.
And in your view, the government the government of the country and all it takes to lead the country should be given to Sunni majority?
No, I'm not saying this,
okay.
Definitely. There should be no place for any sectarian ideology in our region. This is for sure for everybody.
But if Bashar will fall, aren't you afraid that the Sunni will proceed with the other minorities in Syria as they did with the Sunni?
They should take necessary measures that a legitimate government, including the members of course, every group in the country, including the Alawites, the Nusayris as well, to be in the government. If they start to do the same thing that people did in Iraq, it will be a nightmare, of course. But this will also be a no solution. There is no way to go like this. We can just maybe have a very short period of pause, of hostilities, whatever, but it will blast again.
Is, in your view, a solution to federalize Syria?
Could be it's the people of Syria who will decide about it.
To have Bashar with his own part of the territory and to have the rest with Sunni and to have all the others. I mean,
I'm envied. Turkey is not at a position to say the future of Syria should be a federation or not. People of Syria will decide about it. But we see no future for Bashar Assad in this country.
Me neither.
Because people will not return back. I mean, as long as he's in the power, he is the responsible person of all this human tragedy and people who migrated or just flee out of persecution to Europe and elsewhere. What we say in Geneva, we decided certain principles as the international community. It will be a unified country, territorially intact country. It will be a legitimate government, whatever government do they wish, and the system, it's up to them. And also it will be a secular state. This is so important.
Yes.
Secularism is so important for the future of Syria. That's what we think. And as a Muslim majority nation, our support for the secular nation of Syria is something different. It means a lot. If a Christian majority country says it, Arab Street can think differently, saying that, well, there are different or secondary agendas behind this secularism. No, it's not. Secularism is key also, as it was key in my country, for the future of Syria.
Very, very interesting opinion. I will develop a little bit on it. Let me ask you something else, Mr. Ambassador. You are now, let's say, having problems with the PKK and the Syrian group that you also mentioned that is very active, unfortunately, on the territory of Turkey. You have an unsolved issue with the Kurd minority. which is living on your territory and also at the south of your territory. Now, would this be the cause of having the problems that Turkey has now? Is this the reason for which Turkey was considered by some countries not so democratic because it didn't manage to integrate a minority? I'm challenging you. I'm the devil's advocate here. Of course. These two issues, looking from, as you said, from offices in London, in different places, not even in Romania, because here we see different the reality. Important analysts, I will not quote their name just not to make them publicity, because they don't deserve. They make this simplistic approach. Turkey is in this situation because you didn't manage to integrate Kurds.
First of all, the narrative of Turkey against Kurds or Turkey's fighting against Kurds is totally wrong. In the first place, we have millions of Kurds, Kurdish origin of Turkish citizens living in my country with peace, and they are proud of being Turk and being Turkish citizens, and they are, again, millions of intermarriages. They are having their rights, they have their MPs, they can use their language freely, and etc. Second, if Turks or Turkey were against Kurds, then why shall we have cordial and very close relationship with the Iraqi Kurdistan? Iraqi Kurdistan is the only place for the Kurds living in these four countries. As you know, Kurds are living predominantly in Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and Syria. So this is the only place that they have far autonomy.
Yes.
And we are the ones, actually, as a regional actor, that are more supportive of them. And if there is now a relative prosperity and stability in the northern part of Iraq, in Iraqi Kurdistan, it's predominantly thanks to Turkey's cooperation and support given to the government in this particular region. So we are not against Kurds. There's nothing such thing.
Mr. Mus,
we are against.
Please.
Yeah.
I was about to add something to you, just to make more interesting the discussion. If you are cooperating very well with this government of the autonomous region of the Kurds in Iraq, why don't you give them an autonomy also in Turkey?
PKK was founded in 1980s, and this issue is not an old one. It's coming from decades now. And in the beginning, they asked for independence from Turkey. And we said no way. And now, since the international community is predominantly accepted PKK as a terrorist organization, they change rhetoric and they say, no, we don't want independence, but we want autonomy. No democratic state, will allow such a demand if there is no ground for resentment. When there is a terrorist organization, it can be everywhere in the world, also in developed countries like IRA in Britain or ETA in Spain. We just need to look to two things. One, is there a ground for resentment so that these people took up arms against the illegitimate government and trying to find their ways? This is a very serious and important question to answer. Of course, nothing legitimizes the use of force.
Of course.
But in the Turkish case, if you look what we did in the last 10 years on the Kurdish dossier, so this is an answer also actually to the criticism. Now, our Kurdish citizens of Kurdish origin, can use Kurdish in broadcasting, for example. We have a state TV channel who is broadcasting 24 hours a day in Kurdish language. They can use Kurdish in schools, in universities. They can make political propaganda in Kurdish, for example. And in one of the EU countries, for example, again, I'm not naming it to be politically correct, it is by law forbidden to use your mother tongue when you are doing political campaign. But it's not in Turkey, for instance. In the courtroom, for example, if someone wants to talk in Kurdish, they can't talk in Kurdish. They have their MPs, the party who argued that they represent that part of the population. They have 60 or so MPs in the parliament. They can say any, without, of course, inviting people to violence, things which are not accepted by the majority. So there is no ground for any resentment. If you want autonomy, let's say, of a particular minority in Hungary or elsewhere, you will discuss, you can go to referendum, but you discuss it in a civilized way through politics, through the parliament, through civil organizations, but not by fighting.
I understand you very well.
This is their problem. They are doing this by using terror against civilians, against women, against children.
Then
this is unacceptable.
Then who's we using, Mr. Ambassador? Who is using PKK?
PKK has been used by many different forces, and today they are also being used by major powers as well. In the past, for example,
major powers means who?
In Syria, if you look to Syria, for example, one of the major supporters of PYD, who is clear the collaborator and wing of the PKK, sister organization, it is Russia, for example. Russia is providing them ammunition, weapon in the fight against so-called Daesh, which there is no such thing actually. In the past, their imprisoned leader, Öcalan, of the PKK, he stayed for many years in Damascus as a guest of the father of Assad.
Al-Assad, yes.
Father of Assad.
Yes.
So, as I say, PKK is a useful instrument for many different actors in the past who actually targets Turkey. Because Turkey, is a strong country, is a major power.
Yes.
Instead of facing it directly, it's always convenient to use this tool. On the other hand, when I mentioned about resentment thing and democracy thing, it is so vital, of course, to go to the root causes. Only with fighting, you cannot, end terrorism. You should go through the root causes. And we did. We started clear negotiations to try to solve the problem as the Brits did.
Mm-hmm.
They solved it on the IRA issue. They took Sinn Féin as interlocutor.
The political part, the political side of the...
We tried to do the same. For 3 years there was a truce, a peace in Turkey. And Diyarbakir, Mardin, Urfa all prospered. Tourism started to pour in, investments pour in. And after the 3 years period, their leader, even from the prison, Öcalan, he made an open call saying that, well, it's over now. Just PKK members should leave their arms and leave the country. But they did not listen. After the June elections, when they see the huge change in Syria, in northern Syria, another territory that is to be given freely to their Syrian arm, so they just started to fighting against in my own country. What they did, in Syria now, the PYD is declaring cantons, what we call. So meaning, this is my place, my territory, no one can come here from the central government. So they start to cantonize in some towns of Turkish southeast, saying that no police can enter to this, city or town. If there is a problem, I'll solve it myself. I'll be judge, I'll be prosecutor as the PKK. So no one can enter here. Of course, we cannot accept such a thing. So we needed to, for example, impose curfews in such countries. They dig huge trenches, erected barricades, not to prevent the security forces going in.
But what is the population living in those areas is thinking about these initiatives of the PKK?
We are so lucky in a sense that our Kurdish citizens, most of them, majority of them, are pro-state. They are favoring their country. They are proud of being a citizen of a country like Turkey. So they are not giving public support to it. If they had given public support to it, it would have been quite difficult. What PKK wanted to do from Kandil Mountains, their leadership is there in northern Iraq, they make continuous calls to the Kurdish people in the region saying that you should all go onto the streets, riot against the state. But thanks God, our citizens are brighter than they didn't do this.
Let me go back to a very important aspect you mentioned, which was in the beginning for discussion. You mentioned there's a major danger for Middle East and not seen by the international community, including by these so clever analysts, the secularism. What did you mean by that? Because I understand in Syria and Iraq, but and also in Turkey because of the examples you already gave. But do you feel this also happening in other countries of the region, like Saudi Arabia or Qatar or Iran? Or what did you mean by the danger of secularism?
Sure. As you know, Leigh Huntington mentioned about Clash of Civilizations.
Yes.
But now,
well-known book.
Unfortunately, things are proving that he's wrong because the real clash is within civilizations. Yes. So Muslims are killing Muslims in the name of Allah.
Yes.
With a strange mentality and ideology. Sectarianism is the major danger now because in the Islamic world in general, if it goes into deeper, it could turn into a violent form. And in many countries, there are serious, divisions on this front. If you look at Iraq, for example, there is now a Shia majority, but there is a considerable Sunni populations as well.
Absolutely, which is supporting silently Daesh.
Yes, and if there is a break of kind of clash between the two, it will be, a lake of blood. It will be very dangerous. The same goes for Syria, and already in Yemen now there is a fight.
In Yemen as well.
The whole Middle East actually is passing through tremendous difficult times, and if you look to the just beneath, you will see some sectarian considerations or interest just behind it. So we need to be. That's why Turkey is favoring a secular Syria, as it foresees the same for itself. There should not be a Sunni agenda. There should not be a Shia agenda. If you try to create a belt of a certain sectarian from Iraq to Syria, which goes to Lebanon, then all the Gulf states are irked. Hey, what's going on here?
Yes.
There is also the balance of Egypt over there. So that's why we see as Turkey the biggest danger as being the sectarian thing.
Mr. Ambassador, we have 2 minutes before the second commercial break, but I want to ask you another question. Please tell me, not to me, but to the citizens, when you mention sectarian, you mean groups within the same religion, the same ethnic group, fighting with each other, but what I want to know is, are these rising by itself, or they are supported and financed by different countries in the region, in the world? I don't know. And why is this? Okay, I understand the roots, but these roots are natural or they are artificial?
There's always ground, unfortunately, because if you look to the history of
past,
Islam, Islamic history, there is always a division, and unfortunately it was so bloody.
Yes.
That's why, as state actors, as Turkey, as a majority Sunni country, as Iran, who is representing the Shiite world, as Saudi Arabia, again, a majority Sunni country, and other actors, we should be very careful not to play on this card, because it will be destructive for everybody. It might actually help you in the first instance, but it will definitely backfire. That's what I'm saying.
Let me translate what I understood, because we have to take the second break of commercials. Diplomatically, what you say is our own country, no matter if we are belonging to an ethnic group, should not help in the conflict area that ethnic group we are belonging to, but we, no matter if it's Iran, you, Saudi Arabia, or others, should actually find a solution for the territory, not for each corresponding ethnic group.
Yeah, there is no other way.
It's not the way.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I believe, Mr. Ambassador, it's happening on the reverse now. Cu ambasadorul Turciei la București. Domnule ambasador, Mr. Ambassador, we have talked a lot about what is happening in the region, and before stepping forward to the relation between Turkey and the EU, which is a very important and sensitive issue, including for Romania, I would like to ask you another question. You have a terrorist group on your territory, which is PKK. You explain to Romanians what is PKK, how is it acting, and why why you are forced not to agree to give them autonomy or to talk to them, because their people are represented in your parliament and so on. I will not repeat your arguments, but I would like to ask you something. As a, let's say, as a person which is member of the European Union, of a country which is member of the European Union, how is possible that if a terrorist group attacks France, UK, the same group sometimes, it's considered terrorism, but if the same group is attacking Turkish people, is considered by the international community now?
that is the right question to ask actually. If you're a country with poor democratic credentials, or if you're not a democratic country at all, then there might be ground for criticism. But let's say what happened after the bloody incident in Paris. It was a notorious campaign of a terrorist group. And of course, France had the right, French authorities had the right to take all measures. They invited military to the cities. They even withheld the relevant provisions of the European Convention on Human Rights. And nobody questioned it. There were, of course, some commentaries within the government criticizing that it's going too far, and etc., changing some legislation.
I can add something here. 1/3 of the French army is still, let's say, on the whole territory of France, because of this. They are not anymore like before staying in certain places. Now they're all over France, just to prevent such cases.
Yes. In Turkey, in the recent operations, when we go to the town, for example, which is completely captured from inside by PKK elements, we just move inch by inch. That's why it takes 1 month, 2 months of curfews. But why we go inch by inch? Because human lives, civilian lives are so important for us. It's a democratic country, and whatever mistakes that our security authorities could make is very well known in the public, by our courts. So we are very careful not to harm in any way our civilian citizens, civilian populations. That's why we are going very slowly. I should show you the pictures of what these people dug in these trenches, for example. Tons of explosives within the houses where normally families should have lived, because they kick out the families and shelter in the house and start firing from these houses to the security officials. But since we give too much attention to the fine balance between security and freedom, we acted very carefully not to harm in any way the basic rights, the fundamental rights of the people. And this is actually confirmed by the European Court of Human Rights. Just last month, a group applied to the European Court of Human Rights saying that the curfews imposed in Turkey are against the fundamental rights. But the court said, no, we trust the Turkish authorities because they know that Turkey is not the Turkey of 1980s. Now we are talking about a different Turkey who is negotiating with the EU with all democratic credentials. So the court rejected twice an application that asked for lifting of curfews. So I just see a kind of orientalistic, above-looking position from certain commentators when they say, well, if there's a bomb here, this is horrible, this is human life, but if there's a bomb here, well, there is something here.
I don't think they have ever been there. This is what I think. And of course, sometimes even the Western analysts, some of them are not so well, are not objective, or they are not so well documented. But I feel that also you have a guilt, you Turkey, Mr. Ambassador, because you did not, first of all, communicate these examples, these explanations so well until now. I don't believe that in the international media your public diplomacy effort was not so much present to explain why and how and so on, as you did now here. And on the other hand, I believe that it is a past which is coming, even Romania has this problem. It's a past which is coming over Turkey from different historical moments. But overall, if you ask me, I believe that Turkey should be in the EU. And now I'm opening another chapter of discussion, which is very important for you, very important for us. I'm looking at the leaders of the European Union, to their impotence, to their incapacity to solve this crisis of the Middle East. The roots, as you mentioned, or the surface, nothing. They had, of course, their, let's say, their secret services, intelligence services, I'm sure, or their whatever analysts made them very clear reports regarding the evolution of the Middle East. And what the European Union did was nothing. Now,
We were actually shouting for years now. The danger is the flood is coming.
Exactly.
Both on the this irregular migration issue and also on terrorism issue.
On terrorism, on sectarianism, as you just mentioned.
We were shouting for years.
These are not coming out of the blue for them, but the egoist attitude of these countries was so powerful that they preferred to let the crisis go on. And finally, I saw Germany, to my surprise, because it was the first time, saying we are ready to open more chapters. We are open to negotiate with Turkey. And it is not, of course, a sincere attitude. It's just because of your capacity to keep Europe, let's say, secure, and in the same time to keep Europe away of the problems, because you have 2.6 million migrants, where Europe has all Europe. It's not more than 1 million. Therefore, I would like to ask you, Mr. Ambassador, if you feel that after these events, EU as a whole, or the big powers of the EU, because Romania, as you know, is already supporting you to accede to the EU as soon as possible, if you feel a change of not only of a message, because diplomacy is diplomacy, but the facts are the reality. Do they act in any way favorably for you to join EU sooner?
Thank you. As you know, in EU there are two groups of people when it comes to Turkey. One group, and Romania is one of them, believes in the strategic perspective of Turkey's membership in the EU. The second group looks from other angles. They say Turkey is a threat, Turkey is a danger, Turkey is too Muslim, too poor, blah, blah. From the very beginning, what we told to them, here is a Muslim majority country who is ascribing to the same values that you are ascribing, both in the political sector and on the economic sector. By pushing this huge country, which has a very rich history and which has already been European, if you take it from the Ottoman times, and even today we are already European. We have more than 3 million Turks living in Europe. And we are already
in Europe? Or?
In Europe,
yes.
Living in Europe.
How many are in Germany? Do you know?
Slightly more than 2 million. So it's a big community.
Okay.
You know.
And they're complaining of receiving...
No, we are already in.
Exactly.
I mean, without Turkey, Europe will continue to be a political dwarf. And we were saying it from the very beginning. Of course, we are not saying, well, just because of political considerations, do not see our problems or our mistakes or whatever. No, whatever the rules are, we are ready to do it, because there are chapters, and in these chapters, as you did, we have to do our homework, change our legislation, in certain cases change our mentality, and try to reach to these standards. And after that, it's our basic right to ask for the membership of the club. But strategic vision actually didn't work for many years. And in 2005, about 10 years now, relationship were stalled. It is unfortunate that a huge crisis actually would again trigger us to get together again. Tragic in the sense that we only remember each other during crisis times.
True.
It should not be like this. You know, we should have been partners. We are partners and essential partners for each other on many issues. It could be on foreign policy issues, on domestic security issues, on migration issues, etc. But anyway, nothing is too late. On November, we agreed on two clusters on things. One cluster is about irregular migration, to stop migrant flows and supporting Turkey's capacity to deal with refugees inside the country. And the second cluster is about Turkey's EU membership process. We decided to re-energize what we call to the relationship. And even here, as you said, we are poor on communication. People made some strange, claims about this deal itself, saying that Turkey blackmailed with the migrants and he got 3 billion in the pocket and he will get, it's making a bargain in the bazaar, like the Turkish way, and etc. First of all, we did not ask for this 3 billion ourselves. And this 3 billion is not coming to our budget. It's not coming to Turkey's own expenditures. It will be for the Syrians, and it will be like the EU funds. You have to prepare the project, you have to open the school, open the hospital only for Syrians, then the money will come. And secondly, we are doing tremendous, actually already, and we had already done, and will continue to do, of course. We are spending tremendous effort to host these refugees already in our country. 2.6 million people. When you say it, it's a little figure, but I'm like, talking about millions.
It's a town like Bucharest.
Exactly. There are many EU nations who are smaller than 2.6 million.
Yes, true.
And we have 200,000 more, mostly Iraqis. So it's about 3 million. And we have spent billions of dollars about their needs. So I'm just giving this not because, what we did. No, just to say that it's not something give and take. Of course, as a country, we value the security of our partners in the EU, their domestic order and etc. And we try hard to prevent these irregular flows. It should be regulated and it should be a resettlement mechanism, etc. So this agreement actually envisages what to do in this front. On our part, in this 2 months already has passed over that, we took some very serious steps. For example, we give working permits for the Syrians living in Turkey. So they can now work with real money, real salary, I mean. Because in the past they were working in the black market, unfortunately, because they didn't have right to work. So we give work permits, and it's also a social challenge for a political party, because you are saying, okay, this 2.5 million people can now enter to the workplace. It will be something.
Impossible.
It will be something against, the Turkish workforce. This is one thing. The second thing, we introduce visas for Syrians from third countries. So from the ones who are coming from Syria, it's okay, there's no problem. But from let's say a Syrian living in Romania, if they want to come to Turkey, they need to get visa. And this January, for example, the numbers dropped 140. I mean, last January it was 41,000 Syrians arriving in Turkey from third countries. This January it was only 1,000, for instance.
Because of the visa.
Because of the visa. We introduced similar visa requirements for Iraqis.
Mr. Ambassador.
So we take measures, on our side.
Sorry for interrupting you,
Sure.
but you're a very good diplomat. It's an objective assessment talking to all the ambassadors in town. There are a few ambassadors which are active and they are doing their best.
Thank you.
But you also have been a deputy chief of staff of the president of your country. And this is quite an important position.
I was not deputy though, I was chief of staff. I was deputy in the past,
sorry.
yes.
Oh, then you have to do something with your
CV.
CV.
I'm a diplomat in the end, so...
So you're the chief of staff, not the deputy? I made a
yes.
mistake. But this is the official...
yeah, sure, thank you.
The official
these are
website
in our careers,
CV.
our ministry second us to certain positions, so originally, I'm a diplomat.
No problem. Sorry,
yes.
You're the chief of staff of the president of your country. This is not
the former president.
The former president. Mm-hmm. This is not a little, it's quite a lot. And you don't have a perspective only of a diplomat. You also have a political perspective as well. I don't want you to give me the political perspective, but to be the chief of staff of a president of a country like Turkey at such a young age, it gives you, and being intelligent and understanding things, it gives you quite a very wide vision of the problems. I personally don't believe in the official reasons that EU is giving to, or let's say Germany, France and whatever, are giving to Turkey not to be in the EU. I don't believe they are afraid of the Muslim community of coming from Turkey. You already mentioned are 3 million already in EU.
And we are talking about visa-free travel, as you know.
And you are
before the membership, I mean.
Exactly, it's almost done.
No.
It's almost done. So at that moment, if visa will be over, then what is the reason anymore to oppose, even if the EU already agreed? You know what, Mr. Ambassador? I believe that our few countries in the EU extremely careful to their power to be maintained. They forgot about the spirit of the EU, the idea of the EU, the parents of the EU, which meant to have a power to oppose war, to oppose, let's say, destabilize Europe again. Those are the basic principles of the European Union. What is Turkey bringing? Exactly this. We don't have any army in Europe to be equivalent of yours. We don't have a position to the Black Sea or in the region as you have. So my perception, and now I'm speaking to the former chief of staff of the president, is that Germany and some other countries are afraid of the big number of future European population, which is about 70 million.
Correct.
And Germany itself is about 70 something, almost 80 million. So you would have an equivalent political power as Germany now in the EU. The number of MPs, the Euro MPs you would have in the European Parliament, the influence you would have over the European Commission, your strong army and strong economy is not Romania having a divided political class with a large population, but far, far beyond you, without an army like you have and without the power that you have. And my feeling is that even though this would be in the advantage of the EU, in the advantage of Romania, in the advantage of the countries, small and medium countries, the big countries are afraid of you because you would represent not a new leader, but certainly a competitor for the leadership of EU. I'm starting with my analysis.
Okay. Well, thank you for your compliments. I was a diplomat and I am still a diplomat now, so there are of course rules and limitations, but I can certainly say some leaders in Europe acted with political considerations, definitely. And this is wrong. This is wrong in the sense that strategically they are losing the bigger picture and the vision. It's not about, Turkey is doing poor in certain freedoms, rights, and etc. It's something, whether you see Turkey as an equal partner. I'm not talking about membership, if you realize. Of course, membership will come itself.
Accession.
Norway is not an EU member, but it's a European power.
Sure.
Turkey is not an EU member, but it's already in Europe. It has been a European power. But pushing Turkey out by such orientalistic and up-looking attitude will just undermine the credentials of Europe, the security of Europe, the wealth in Europe, the economy in Europe. So we'll be successful together and we will lose together. So that's...
Was I
the
wrong
main
with my
message.
analysis?
Which part of it?
Well,
You have great analysis, what can I say?
the ones about reasons,
What
the
can I
real
say?
reasons of
Could be,
some
I don't want to
powers.
read the minds of European leaders, but we hope that they have the same strategic thinking as you have here.
Mr. Master, we are living in a new world. We are not living 50 years ago, and we have to adjust to the reality. And the reality for Romania and for the Black Sea, especially with not only with the Russian threat, with everything that happens in the Middle East, which can happen with or without Russia, in my view. No matter who is involving who, cannot be ignored by the European Union. And that's why I asked you if you feel, and I insist on this, if you feel that now European Union as a whole, or the big powers of the EU, understand that their freedom of their citizens depend on Turkey, and forced by these events they manage to promise more or to be more engaged with Turkey.
There's definitely a change of heart and mentality in Europe regarding Turkey's importance, but I also see a danger there because the public opinion, because of the information given by the politicians, is expecting, well, the EU is giving 3 billion to the Turks, and Turks who were deliberately sending all these people to Greece will stop the flood. It is not easy. And this is not the case actually. Just 1 year, 1 million refugees reached Europe shore, mainly from Greece and Italy. But the number in Turkey increased about hundreds of people, hundreds, thousands of people. So the refugees actually are not coming mostly from Turkey. They are not the ones who are leaving Turkey. They are coming from other regions. We have even Afghans coming from Iran, for example. It's documented. Afghan refugees living in Iran started to move, and they started to try to move there. We started all these patrols. We asked together with Greece and Germany the help of NATO, and NATO started patrols as well in the Aegean. We put 40 ships who were patrolling constantly. We are doing our best to stop this flood, and numbers are diminishing, but they are not at a level that we could say, well, there's a dramatic decrease. So if we cannot control actually the public opinion in that sense as well, in a short period, we could also have a kind of backlash again. Once again, well, the Turks couldn't do it; they just use these tricks and etc., which is entirely wrong because the thing itself is difficult. How can Greece, on its own, can tackle with hundreds of thousands of refugees itself? He cannot.
Sure.
How can Turkey does it? With the huge burden of domestic security issues in the southeast, a huge problem in this 1,000 kilometer of Syrian, 1.2 thousand kilometer Syrian and Iraqi border. From Bucharest to Vienna, it is almost 1.2 thousand kilometers. Can you imagine to control this whole land piece? And in the meantime, we are trying to fight with these
Sure.
groups in the Aegean.
Mr. Ambassador, my last question, because we have 2 minutes more.
Yep.
It's a question of a simple citizen. I see the news presented by Romanian media or international media, and I will ask you again, as I did last time, in the beginning of our talk show today. Mr. Ambassador, starting with, let's say, the airplane, which was, crashed. I will not say it was crashed by you or it was on the border or not. But starting with the problem with the airplane, which was the Russian airplane, which was crashed. Then, which crashed. Second, we have now Syria and the involvement of Russia with Bashar and you and the coalition on the other side. Do you see any perspective of a regional war between Turkey as part of NATO? And the Secretary General of NATO said very clear, we will protect Turkey. We will intervene if Russia will start any, aggression against Turkey. Do you see in any way possible an aggression in the region between Turkey and Russia?
Alex, we have been a very responsible member of NATO, and we never put the security of our allies at risk. So we are not crazy, of course, to go into war ourselves in Syria and etc. We'll continue to act responsibly. Even in the downing of this jet, which was turned out to be a Russian one later on, if you follow the statements of Turkey and our actions, it has always been cool-headed. We did not, if we wanted to increase the tension, we had every right and also means to do it, but we did not. We tried to cool it down. So we will continue to act as a responsible member of the international community. I hope these third powers who are using terrorist elements to target Turkish civilians in my country do not continue their operations, because these operations are aimed at triggering a Turkish reaction and pulling Turkey into this quagmire. But we will try not to, give in to these pressures and continue to protect our security, but also behave as a responsible member of the international community.
Okay, well, a diplomat answer, but I understand it, and it's difficult to actually see what can happen in different situations. But Mr. Ambassador, it was not only a pleasure, it was also very informative and interesting to discuss with you, not only about Turkey, but the whole region and the perspectives of the region, of the EU in the relation with Turkey and the relation with the region. Let me have one last question. Do you feel the support of Romania? I saw President Iohannis' declaration saying that it's supporting totally Turkey in fighting terrorism. And I want to, probably we're not, our power is not so big in the EU, but do you feel the support of Romania now?
Yes. As you know, in the last 2 decades, the relationship have always been strong, regardless of the political colors of our leaders. So yes, it is the case even today. So we are grateful all this support coming from both Mr. President and also from the government as well, because we also have a good, strong statement from the Minister of Foreign Affairs and sure, Mr. Minister himself.
Yes.
So we are grateful to that.
Okay. Well, thank you again for coming. It was a pleasure to have you. And so I'm very sorry for what is happening in Turkey and the people that are dying because of terrorist attacks. hopefully EU will understand at the end what is the interest of the whole EU, not only of the few countries looking to their own interests. And I hope to have you as a guest again with more good news, not only with only this bad picture
hopefully,
of
yeah.
the region and what is happening there. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
Vă mulțumesc și noastră pentru faptul că v-ați uitat și vă așteptăm săptămâna viitoare la o nouă emisiune cu un nou ambasador. Iar în același timp vreau să nu uitați că aveți un aliat în tot ceea ce înseamnă fără de legi în România. O seară bună!